Chaitanya Sadharine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasudeva Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Srimad Bhagavad Gita Grantha Raj Ki Jai Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So today we're on text 31. Swadharmam apichaveksha navikam pitumarhasi dharmyadi yudyat shreyonyat kshatriyasya navidyate. Swadharmam, one's own religious principles. Api, also. Cha, indeed. Aveksha, considering. Na, never. Vikampitam, to hesitate. Arhasi, you deserve. Dharmyat, for religious principles. He, indeed. You dot, than fighting. Shreya, better engagement. Anyat, any other. Kshatriyasya, of the Kshatriya. Na, does not. Vidyate, exists. Translation. Considering your specific duty as a Kshatriya, you should know that there is no better engagement for you than fighting on religious principles, and so there's no need for hesitation. Please repeat. Considering your specific duty as a Kshatriya, you should know that there is no better engagement for you than fighting on religious principles. And so there is no need for hesitation. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada. So who would like to read? Yes.
One of the four orders of social administration, the second order for the matter of good administration, is called Kshatriya. Kshat means hurt. One who gives protection from harm is called Kshatriya. Trayate, to give protection. The Kshatriyas are trained for killing in the forest. A Kshatriya would go into the forest and challenge a tiger face to face and fight with the tiger with his sword. When the tiger is killed, it would be offered the royal order of cremation. This system has been followed even up to the present day by the Kshatriya kings of Jaipur state. The Kshatriyas are especially trained for challenging and killing, because religious violence is sometimes a necessary factor. Therefore, Kshatriyas are never meant for accepting directly the order of sannyasa or renunciation. Non-violence in politics may be a diplomacy, but it is never a factor or principle. In the religious law books, it is stated.
You just read the English.
In the battlefield, a king or a Kshatriya, while fighting another king envious of him, is eligible for achieving the heavenly planets after death, as the Brahmanas also attain the heavenly planets by sacrificing animals in the sacrificial fire. Therefore, killing on the battlefield on religious principles and killing animals in the sacrificial fire are not all considered to be the acts of violence, because everyone is benefited by the religious principles involved. The animal sacrifice gets a human life immediately without undergoing the gradual evolutionary process from one form to another, and the Kshatriyas killed on the battlefield also attain the heavenly planets, as so do the Brahmanas who attain them by offering sacrifice. There are two kinds of swadharmas, specific duties. As long as one is not liberated, one has to perform the duties of his particular body in accordance with religious principles in order to achieve liberation. When one is liberated, one's swadharma, specific duty, becomes spiritual, and it is not in the material bodily concept. In the bodily conception of life, there are specific duties for the brahmanas and the kshatriyas respectively, and those duties are unavoidable. Such as Swadharma is ordinary by the Lord. Ordained by the Lord, and this will be clarified in the 4th chapter. On the bodily plane Swadharma is called Varnashrama Dharma, or a man's stepping stone for spiritual understanding. Human civilization begins from the stage of Varnashra Dharma, or specific duties in terms of specific modes of nature of the body obtained. Discharging one specific duty in any field of action in accordance with the orders of higher authorities serves to elevate one in the higher status of life.
Good. So there are a lot of points here. And first of all, the Varnashram Dharma is concerned with slowly elevating people from modes of ignorance and passion to the mode of goodness. So, the Brahmanas are supposed to be in the mode of goodness. The Kshatriyas are mixed goodness and passion. The Vaishyas are passion. And the Sudras are ignorance. So, they're all in the Varnashram system, and they all have specific rules to follow. These are explained in the 18th chapter. We can look at them real quickly. In the 18th chapter. Starting from verse number 40, 1840. It says, "There is no being existing, either here or among the demigods, in the higher planetary system, which is freed from these three modes born of material nature." So everywhere, from the hellish planets right up to the planets of demigods, the modes of material nature are acting on people. And therefore, the Vedic instructions for people in the Varnashram system are to gradually elevate them. It can't happen overnight, but they gradually elevate it from lower modes to the mode of goodness. And in the mode of goodness, if they continue to advance, they can become free of the influence of the modes. But we see the modes are acting even on the demigod planets. So now it says, verse 41, "Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Sudras are distinguished by the qualities born of their own natures in accordance with the material modes." O Arjuna, chastiser of the enemy. So now, 42 is Brahminical qualities. Samadhamma tapasacham shantirarjavamevacha jnanam vijnanam astikam brahmakarma swabhavajam. Peacefulness, self-control, austerity, purity, tolerance, honesty, knowledge, wisdom, and religiousness. These are the natural qualities by which the Brahmanas work. And the Kshatriyas: heroism, power, determination, resourcefulness, courage in battle, generosity, and leadership are the natural qualities of work for the Kshatriyas. And then for the Vaishyas, farming, cow protection, and business are the natural work for the Vaishyas. And for the Sudras, there is labor and service to others. Then the next verse says, "By following his qualities of work, every man can become perfect. Now please hear from me how this can be done." So then the next verse says, "By worship of the Lord, who is the source of all beings and who is all-pervading, a man can attain perfection through performing his own work." So perfection means that as they rise up from ignorance to passion to goodness. Now, everyone has a mixed bag of these modes. During time we're sleeping, we're in the mode of ignorance. Well, if it's a deep sleep, we're in the mode of ignorance. If we're dreaming, it's called the mode of passion. Then when we wake up, we suddenly begin to remember who we are and what our duties in life are. And That's the mode of passion. And then, if we're fortunate to come to the temple and witness Mangal Arati, and then Tulsi Arati, and then chanting our rounds, we come up to the mode of goodness. Then when we go out to work, that's the mode of passion. And ignorance also. Sometimes you get angry at work. Sometimes you get very frustrated. Right? So you see the modes can be fluctuating during one day in the life of a person. Brahmanas are people who are all the time in the mode of goodness. And if they manifest other qualities of passion and ignorance, then you know that they're, well, you could say they're just a normal person, but they're mostly in the mode of goodness. But genuine Brahmanas are always in the mode of goodness. And then the businessmen, and the Kshatriyas, they have to be in the mode of passion and goodness to function. The businessmen are always in the mode of passion. There might be a very little bit of goodness and ignorance. And then the Sudras are usually a little bit of passion and a lot of ignorance. Okay, so when we put Krishna in the center of our life, as this verse 46 says, by worship of the Lord, who is the source of all being and who is all-pervading, a man can attain perfection through performing his own work. So that's when you put Krishna in the center of your life. And that's what we're trying to do in the temple. It's called Daiva Varnashram, God-centered Varnashram. So that we're always, if we're regularly associating with devotees, seeing the deities, hearing Bhagavad Gita, then that progression takes place in a very regulated way, from ignorance to passion to goodness, and then eventually sustainable goodness, and then eventually transcendental goodness. And that's the normal progression. It can take a long, long time, or many lifetimes for some people, or it can happen in one lifetime. It depends.
What are the 3 steps?
What?
What are the 3 steps?
Well, there's ignorance, passion, and goodness, right? 3 modes. And by regularly associating with devotees, one can gradually leave the mode of ignorance and be the mode of passion, and then leave the mode of passion and be consistently, or most of the time, in the mode of goodness, and then eventually progress to transcendental goodness. So in that purport to verse 46, we should read that because it's a very important purport. Anybody wants to read? 1846. Anybody? Go.
As stated in the 15th chapter, all living beings are fragmental parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord. Thus, the Supreme Lord is the beginning of all living entities. This is confirmed in the Vedanta Sutra, Janmadi Asya Yasa. The Supreme Lord is therefore the beginning of life of every living entity. And as stated in the 7th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, the Supreme Lord, by his 2 energies, his external energy and internal energy, is all-pervading. Therefore, one should worship the Supreme Lord with his energy.
Okay, that means everything that we have in our life, we should learn how to use it in Krishna's service. That's called real education. You serve the Lord with his energies. And if we do that, then we're not affected by the laws of karma. It's when we use Krishna's energies for our own special or our own selfish interests, then we get entangled by the laws of material nature. So that's a very important line. Therefore, one should worship the Supreme Lord with his energies. So the flower, water, and the fruit, and the vegetable, all these things are Krishna's energies. Everything is made of his energies, earth, water, fire, air, ether. So that they should all be used or in the service of the Lord. If we learn how to do that, then we're educated. And we're no longer going to be affected by the modes of material nature. Go ahead.
Generally, the Vaishnava devotees worship the Supreme Lord with his internal energy.
Okay, so his internal energy is Radharani, that is, serving the Lord intimately. Basically, Radharani and the gopis serve the body of the Lord. So therefore we have the deity, and we serve the body of the Lord by bathing him, dressing him, and feeding him, and offering arti. Go ahead.
His external energy is a perverted reflection.
Wait a minute. Generally,
Generally, the Vaishnava devotees worship the Supreme Lord with his internal energy. His external energy is a perverted reflection of the internal energy. The external energy is a background, but the Supreme Lord, by the expansion of his plenary portion, as Paramatma, is situated everywhere. He is the super soul of all demigods, all human beings, all animals everywhere. One should therefore know that as part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, one has a duty to render service unto the Supreme. Everyone should be engaged in devotional service to the Lord in full Krishna consciousness. That is recommended in this verse.
so because Krishna is present everywhere and in everything, and everything belongs, and everything's made of his energy, then everything belongs to Krishna. So we should, all of us, engage in the service of Krishna and learn how to use the external energy in the service of Krishna. And when you do that, now you're entering into the internal energy, which is, the external energy is there. If you use it for sense gratification, then we can become entangled. If we use it in the service of Krishna, then we're engaged in the internal energy, which is devotional service, just like the gopis and Radharani. Go ahead.
Everyone should think that he is engaged in a particular type of occupation by Krishikesha, the master of the senses. And by the result of the work in which one is engaged, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, should be worshipped. If one thinks always in this way, in full Krishna consciousness, then by the grace of the Lord, he becomes fully aware of everything. That is the perfection of life. The Lord says in Bhagavad Gita 12.7, Sam Aham Samvedanta, the Supreme Lord himself takes charge of delivering such a devotee. That is the highest perfection of life. In whatever occupation one may be engaged, if you serve the Supreme Lord, you will achieve the highest perfection.
So this is very important, extremely important, that Krishna is also the owner of our senses. His name is Hrishikesha, that means the master of the senses. Therefore our senses, eyes, ears, nose, tongue, skin, and the mind, should only be used in Krishna's service. We shouldn't use it for other things. And then, if one is always worshipping Krishna with this, let's say, holistic approach, using all the senses, the body, the mind, everything in the service of the Lord, and always thinking about Krishna, then Krishna becomes the quick deliverer of the devotee. Delivers the devotee from the modes of material nature and eventually from the material world. So Krishna takes charge of delivering such a devotee. That is the highest perfection of life. When you take full shelter of Krishna, then Krishna takes charge of the devotee, his life, his protection, everything. Therefore, in whatever occupation one may be engaged, if he serves the Supreme Lord, he will achieve the highest perfection. So it doesn't matter whether one is born a Sudra or a Vaishya or a Kshatriya or a Brahmana, if they're always engaged in serving the Lord, then they develop this special relationship with the Lord, and Krishna will take care of the devotee. So this is the Varnashram system, but it's actually a special, let's say, type. It's called Daiva Varnashram, God-centered Varnashram. Now, there is the caste system in India, right, which is supposed to be an offshoot of this Varna Ashrama system. Varna means social orders. So there are social orders, and the castes are social orders. But it is a travesty or perversion of the actual Varna system, because the actual Varna system, as we see, 4th chapter, verse 13, says, Chaturvarnyam ayachishtam guna karma vibhagasaha tashikartam apimam vidyakartam avyayam. 13th chapter, 4th chapter, 13th verse. According to the three modes of material nature and the work associated with them, the 4 divisions of human society are created by me. And although I am the creator of the system, you should know that I am yet the non-doer, being unchangeable. So here, these, according to the 3 modes, and the work associated with them, the 4 divisions of human society are created. So, based on guna and karma, guna means quality and karma means work. But the modern caste system as practiced in India is based on birth and work. So that is a huge mistake. And that has caused a lot of havoc in Hinduism and the decline of Hinduism over time. So that happened because the Brahmanas had exclusivity of Sanskrit learning, and in Kali Yuga they became selfish, and in order to preserve their privileges, they purposely changed that one word, guna, to karma. Guna to janma. So they based the modern caste system on janma and karma, but actually it's guna and karma. So the traditional example is of the boy named Jabal. There's a Jabal Upanishad, and he was a low-born boy. He approached Guru Gautam Muni, asked him if he could become a disciple, and Gautam Muni told him, I have to know what your gotra is. So the boy goes home and asks his mother. He didn't know who his father was, and the mother says, I don't know who your father is. I was not having a good life at one time, and I can't really say for sure who your father is. So he goes back, and Gautam Muni asks him, well, what is your gotra? He said, I don't know. He said, my mother said she doesn't know who the father is. I said, okay, I accept you as my disciple. So the boy was surprised. He said, but I don't have a gotra. He said, no, that's okay. You are a Brahmin because you told the truth. That's the real caste system, or the Varna's system. It's based on guna karma, not based on janma karma. And so this is a history that's very ancient, and all throughout history there have been many examples of this type of genuine criterion for establishing the varna of a person. But in the modern times it's become corrupted, and it causes a lot of problems for sincere people. Okay, so if we go back to the original verse, 2nd chapter, 31st verse.
Since when the caste system begins in India? It was also there in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's time. There was
Yes.
caste system.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, Krishnadas Kaviraj was criticized for writing the Chaitanya Charitamrita because he mixed Bengali and Sanskrit. And the caste Brahmins were very upset with that because they have exclusivity on Sanskrit learning. And now Krishnadas Kaviraj translated into vernacular, the people's Bengali, so that everyone can understand. So there was, chipping away at their exclusivity. And then the same thing happened Purandara in South India and Tyagaraja, Annamacharya, and then in Gohat and Assam, Shankar Dev, in Maharashtra, Tukaram. We go all over India, you'll see it happened all over India eventually. Translating the Sanskrit into understandable local languages and nice poetry so they could be sung. So, the Brahmins really didn't like that because that was cutting, slicing away at their exclusivity. But it was necessary because they were misinterpreting the Sanskrit for personal reasons, for selfish reasons.
But Prabhuji, there is something called a Kolika Brutti. Kolika Brutti means whatever profession you do, it's been passed from generation to next generation to next generation.
Yes.
Like that has been happening. So if somebody is in the Sudra, like his father has been, so he has taught the, how to go around doing all those things to his
Yeah, but you have examples like Vishwamitra Muni's Kshatriya became a Brahma.
That example is there, but is there anything like who has come from Sudra to Kshatriya or something like that? Or
Yes. Yeah.
Wasn't Bhaktivinoda Thakur
Even Valmiki, for that matter, he was a very.
Valmiki was a butcher. He was
He was a butcher. He was decoy.
Decoy, yeah. He killed all the animals.
Yeah, by associating with a pure devotee, you can be elevated.
But in most cases, it's based on like a birth is how you follow the brutti, you follow the.
Well, see, don't forget, there's Varna Ashrama. So even though one has a particular Varna, they can eliminate all inequalities through the ashrama system. Okay, for example, myself, I'm born in a butcher family, right? I was trained to be a butcher myself. We didn't kill the animals, but we would cut them up and sell the meat. So that's very inauspicious. But after I met the devotees, I joined the temple, and then I went through the ashrama system. So through the ashrama system, I gave up that butcher background. Right? My father was a butcher. My brothers are butchers. They taught me the family business. But then, because of the association of devotees, I gave it up. You didn't know I was a butcher, right? But now you know.
I'm still thinking about that. It's impossible.
No, why was it impossible? It's very possible. Valmiki was a butcher, right? When you say butcher, he would regularly kill animals, and
Yeah.
right. Migrari was a butcher. Was a person not only half killed animals, he half killed them, and then he would torture them to death. Again, Narada Muni convinced him to give that up. So there are many examples like this. This is the real Vedic tradition, not this, you're born in a Sudra family, you have to be Sudra the rest of your life. The problem is that the Brahmins refuse, generally, to accept, to educate kids from low-born families. They do it today also. Right? Whereas we see in the case of Jabal, the guru accepted him. You see in the Ramcharitmanas, Sabari was accepted. although she had no caste, she was she was a tribal, she was accepted by her guru. Although they wouldn't even accept women, but he accepted her. They wouldn't accept someone not born in a Brahmin family, but he accepted her. And then she was elevated to the point of actually meeting Lord Ram and Lakshmana. So that is the real Vedic culture. Okay? So you have Varna and Ashrama. If there's some inequalities in the Varna system, it's purified by the Ashrama system. But because of the false idea of Janma karma instead of Guna karma, Brahmins normally would not educate kids from other castes. So this was, like even Ramanujacharya, his wife was one of those, how you call her, fanatical Brahmin family. So when he accepted, he had two gurus who were actually low-born. They were not born in Brahmin families. She, one of them she disrespected, where she didn't want to feed him. And then actually she did feed him, but when he finished, he left some prasad, then she threw it away. And when Ramanuja found out about that, he was extremely upset, and then he left his wife. So, it gets pretty serious when you see the wrong understanding of Janma karma and Guna karma. That wrong understanding of what is the actual criterion by which a person is situated in a Varna or Ashrama. So here, and if we go back, Prabhupada is explaining some of the valiant or honorable behavior of Kshatriyas. They go into the forest and they fight single-handedly with a tiger, right? And then they honor the tiger. Well, one of them is going to die. Sometimes a Kshatriya could die also because tigers are extremely dangerous. But if they defeat the tiger, then they need that training in order to go into battle. It's not an easy thing to kill somebody. If you're not trained to do it, it's not easy. And even when you're trained, some people still can't do it. So it takes a lot of training to develop the, let's say, determination to actually go into battle and shoot. That's why in the United States Army, you might have 1.5 million or 2 million soldiers. Only about 300,000 actually are going into battle. All the rest do support. Because not everyone can shoot and kill. It's not possible for everybody. It takes a lot of training to be able to develop that, the iron will and the determination to actually go into battle and kill people. So there's the actual number of fighters in the American Army is a small number. It's not a big number. You hear 1.5 million people who think it's a big army. Actually, it's a small army. I mean, Chinese have 30 million soldiers, right? So they have a much bigger army than the United States. But the United States have, all the other armaments. So,
with that, Prabhuji, why do they ask this question while taking citizenship? Will you raise a weapon if the country demands for it?
who asked that question?
Yeah, while taking citizenship,
Oh, yeah.
they have this question, so they asked me, that's a nice, like, if they will have me, then I didn't say yes completely, but if they will have me, if
Well-
they'll consider me. That's how I entered the answer.
Well, see, even if you say no, they're still going to accept you. Like for example, in the Civil War, only 15% of the American population fought the war against the British. The other 85% did not agree with the war. They were happy to be under the British. There was only 15% that fought the British, but because George Washington was such a good commander, he was able to defeat the British with a small army, much smaller army than the British had. Then the British attacked America a second time in 1812. The war wasn't over yet. They never accepted defeat. They attacked, and they actually captured the White House. They actually defeated at one point the American army, right? But then the Americans were able to defeat the British a second time. You see. So, like today also, how many people actually support, what Trump is doing? Not that many. Most people are against war. You see. And the same way, how many people fought for Indian independence? Not many. Maybe a couple 100,000, maybe not even. Most people were just, going along with whatever is happening. So they're very, to actually fight, you have to be highly trained. It could take several years to train a person to become a real fighting soldier. Most people in the army don't get to that point. They just support the fighters. So you see, the Kshatriyas have to go through this severe training where they actually fight one-on-one with a tiger. They have a sword, or sometimes they go barehanded and fight the tiger. There's examples of that too. And that's extremely dangerous. Right? Okay, so the Kshatriyas are especially trained for challenging and killing because religious violence is sometimes a necessary factor. Therefore, Kshatriyas are never meant for accepting directly the order of sannyasa or renunciation. Non-violence. See, did Arjuna ever take sannyas? Well, yes, he did, to trick Baladev and to marry Subhadra. He did. He dressed like a sannyasi and was invited by Krishna, who knew what he was doing. And he sat down to dinner with Baladev and Subhadra, Subhadra was serving, but with Krishna. And then he kidnapped Subhadra and married her. And then Baladev, when he found out, he was going to go and kill Arjuna, but Krishna convinced him not to do it. But Arjuna was never a sannyasi. It's antithetical for a Kshatriya to become a sannyasi, right? Because they're trained to protect the principles of Dharma. So non-violence in politics may be a diplomacy, but it is never a factor or principle. Yes, so politics never succeeds through non-violence. And that's just a fact. So you can see that, those people who promoted nonviolence as a political tactic, they're usually assassinated, like Gandhi and Martin Luther King and others. They're usually killed. Okay, so in this next paragraph, translation of those two verses from I guess it's from the Mahabharata. It says, in the battlefield, a king or Kshatriya, while fighting another king, envious of him, is eligible for achieving heavenly planets after death. Notice it doesn't say he's eligible for achieving Vaikuntha after death. Right? One can be elevated in the material world, but then you don't go back to Godhead. As the Brahmanas also attain the heavenly planets by sacrificing animals in the sacrificial fire. Well, in Kali Yuga, Brahminical sacrifice of animals is not permitted, neither the cow nor the horse. It was permitted in previous ages. Why? Because they could bring the animal back to life after killing it. But because the Brahmanas are not qualified to do that in Kali Yuga, they're not allowed to do it anymore.
So, wasn't it said that after Yajna, the animal would be born, would probably take a birth of a human?
Well, it says that here, the animal sacrifice gets a human life immediately without undergoing the gradual evolutionary process from one form to another. And the Kshatriya killed on the battlefield also attain the heavenly planets, as do the Brahmanas who attain them by offering sacrifice. This is other places Prabhupada explains that the Brahmanas could bring the animal back to life. That's why they were allowed to kill the animal. So, like for example, I don't know if this is correct or not, but we have the example of Ajamil. He died, but yet he was brought back to life again to give him a second chance. So what did he do? He spent the rest of his life practicing Krishna consciousness in Haridwar, chanting Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya and so forth. And then he went back to Godhead. So maybe something like that is happening with these animals. They're brought back alive, and then in the next life they take birth as a human being. Now, there's one of my sons was going to a Buddhist temple in Redmond, and the priests, the Buddhist priests in this, there's a Buddhist temple in Redmond, right? They eat meat, and my son asked the priest, how come you eat meat? He said, oh, it's very beneficial for the animal. I said, really? He said, yeah, after we eat it, it takes a human birth. Now that's not correct, right? But see, that's where when you start going farther away from India, you know, because Buddhism began in India, and all their main words are in Sanskrit, you know, nirvana, ahimsa, and all that stuff. And many of their scriptures are in Sanskrit. But as you go away from the bona fide parampara, you get these deviations. Where, see, here, the Brahmin could bring the animal back alive again. Right? And then the next birth, it's a human birth. These people, you know, they just say, well, by eating the animal, after killing and eating the animal, it gets a human birth. And it's complete nonsense. You see how things become degraded over time. Okay, so notice the Brahmanas that do the animal sacrifices, and the Kshatriya who dies on the battlefield or is conquering on the battlefield. They might achieve the heavenly planets, but they don't go back to Godhead.
So probably I have a question.
Yeah.
You know, it says there's killing because religious violence is sometimes a necessary factor. It seems like
It doesn't say religious violence, does it? It says violence.
No, it says the Kshatriyas are being specially trained for challenging and killing because religious violence is sometimes a necessary
Okay,
factor.
religious violence is
So
sometimes
can you
necessary.
please clarify, because it could be misinterpreted.
Oh, definitely. Well, the Battle of Kurukshetra was,
Is it meaning standing for
Religious.
Dharma? Is that what it is?
yes.
Okay, then I get it.
Like, for example, Lord Rama engaged in violence. Right? Why? Because his wife was kidnapped. Lord Rama also kills Vali. Why? Because Vali kidnapped Sugriva's wife. Right? So sometimes it's necessary. Vali, of course, didn't like it. He said, look, I don't have a quarrel with you, Rama. I have a quarrel with my brother. I mean, why are you getting involved in this? And Rama said, you're violating Dharma. Rama said, I'm not violating Dharma. You're the one who violated Dharma, and therefore I'm going to kill you. I don't have to. If you violate Dharma, I don't have to kill you in a, according to some rules anymore. You broke the rules, so you're going to die by the broken rule also. And the same thing happened on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Arjuna kills Karna. Karna's back is turned to him. He's off his chariot. He doesn't have a weapon in his hand. Krishna says, shoot him. Kill him. So, did he violate the rules of Dharma? Well, Karna violated the rules of Dharma. So, therefore, after that, there was no, he doesn't deserve to be killed in the proper way, because he started the whole thing by participating in trying to strip Draupadi.
So, Prabhu, that means religious violence, you mean it's for Lord, it's for Krishna or for Rama, then it's religious. Or like if non-devotees engage in violence, I'm saying on terms of religion, if they say, this is for religion, is that also bona fide Because there's some Karma Kanda level there. Is there a
Well,
difference?
let's put it like this. When the Muslims attacked Srirangam, and they killed 1,000 Brahmanas, right? So, fighting, a religious, for a religious purpose is permitted there. What business does this huge army of Muslims have attacking Srirangam? What did Srirangam ever do to them? Nothing, right? So they attacked it. They killed 1,000 Brahmanas. It was a disaster. They couldn't destroy. Well, how did the whole thing stop? Well, one lady, I guess she was the wife of a Brahmana. The Muslims, they were a little bit confused by Srirangam because it's 160 acres. It's a huge place, and and first of all, they can't burn it down because it's made out of rock. Otherwise, they would have burned it down. Right? So this one lady offered to help the Muslim commander find out where everything is. Obviously, there are places where they're hiding gold and things like that. And they knew that Srirangam is very wealthy. So she suggested to him, come up, I'll show you how to get to the top of the biggest Gopuram. And then we can see the whole area of Srirangam. I'll point out everything to you. So he agreed. So they go up to the top of the highest Gopuram, and while they're talking, she pushes him off and he dies. And because of that, the Muslims became, they were infuriated, but they became, I don't know, they were like shocked. Because, when your commander is dead, it causes a disarray, So then they didn't continue trying to destroy the place. They went somewhere else. See, she was a very brave lady. She did the right thing. She did the right thing.
That was religious violence.
Yeah.
Right.
And there are examples like that in Sikhism. There's one saintly woman called Kaur, right? Isn't it? Kaur or Kaur? Kaur, right? You know her story?
I know 10th Guru's mother, she basically struggled and took both the grandsons but she didn't fight per se, she saved them against Muslims.
Okay.
But yeah, they might be something.
No, but there are women in Sikh history who fought. Okay, so now the main point here is the Swadharma, the two kinds of Swadharma, or specific duties. And it says, as long as one is not liberated, one has to perform the duties of his particular body in accordance with religious principles in order to achieve liberation. So, there are prescribed duties for the sutras, by the way, in Kali Yuga, everyone is born a Sudra. Kalo Sudra Sambhava, everyone is born a Sudra. So if you have a Brahmin that's working in Microsoft, he's a Sudra. Right. Maybe his father is a Brahmin because he stayed in Srirangam or Tirupati and is always serving the Lord. But the son, he got this big education, IIT and so forth, he became a Sudra. So when Brahmins never work for anyone, they're always independent. And they can only earn a little bit of money. They have a vow of poverty, and they only earn a little bit of money by teaching, by doing pujas, or doing ceremonies, by begging, or there's one more I forget. But they never work for anybody. So Or sometimes they don't beg at all. They just go and pick up whatever crops the farmer has left on the ground. Like sometimes when they harvest wheat, there's always some wheat in the ground, so they'll go and pick that up. But they won't. They won't accept, like Vidura, he never accepted any money from his brother, Dhritarashtra. He earned his living simply, well, there's a little bit of earning that he did. It was by begging. So that's a Brahmana. Why? Because then he can tell the truth. He's not afraid. No one can hurt him. They can kill him, but they put him in jail. But he can't be financially hurt. Whereas if you have a job and your employer says, well, if you don't tell me what I want to hear, then I'm going to cut off your allowance, and you're attached. You can't speak the truth. So, as long as one is not liberated, one has to perform duties of his particular body in accordance with religious principles in order to achieve liberation. So that is the gradual, step-by-step elevation of a person by following their, let's say, prescribed duties according to the way they're situated in the modes of material nature. And that's called the traditional Varnashram system. But the Varnashram system that we practice in Krishna consciousness is called Daiva Varnashram. That is, we use whatever talents we have. Like someone might be a Sudra but is very good at carpentry, or very good at electrician, or very good in some, as a secretary or something. So they use those skills in the service of Krishna, and they become purified by it. As well as, chanting, waking up early, bathing regularly, hearing lectures, and so forth. Right? When one is liberated, one's swadharma, or specific duty, becomes spiritual and is not in the material bodily concept. So, Arjuna, although he's doing his duty as a Kshatriya, of course he didn't want to do it, but then Krishna convinces him to do it. Now, as a Kshatriya, he's doing his duty, and it is acceptable to Krishna. Therefore, he's become purified. And this is his elevated, this is the higher Swadharma now, because he's completely focused on pleasing Krishna by this activity, and he doesn't do anything that Krishna would not accept. So now he's in a liberated state. Even though he's still killing, he's in a liberated state. He's only killing surgically, according to the instructions of the Lord. When one is liberated, one's swadharma, specific duty, becomes spiritual and is not in the material bodily concept. In the bodily conception of life, there are specific duties for the brahmanas and kshatriyas respectively, and such duties are unavoidable. Swadharma is ordained by the Lord, and this will be clarified in the 4th chapter. On the bodily plane, Swadharma is called Varnashram Dharma, or man's stepping stone for spiritual understanding. Human civilization begins from the stage of Varnashram Dharma, so we don't really have a human civilization today. In America, or Europe, or Russia, or all these places, or Israel, it hasn't. These societies and these cultures have not come to the human level yet. Does that mean we can't? No. No. If we follow Srila Prabhupada's instructions properly, yes, we can come to the human level. And Daiva Varnashram is very, let's say, doable. The regular Varnashram system is impossible to do in Kali Yuga. We would not be able to follow all the rules. They're very, very strict rules, especially for brahmanas. They try to follow those rules in places like Srirangam and Tirupati and Kanchipuram. But even there, they don't exactly follow all the rules. It's almost impossible in Kali Yuga to follow all the rules. If you read them, your hair would stand on end. However, Human civilization begins from the stage of Varnashram Dharma, or specific duties in terms of the specific modes of nature of the body obtained. Discharging one's specific duty in any field of action, in accordance with the orders of higher authorities, serves to elevate one to the higher status of life. So that's the key. In accordance with the orders of higher authorities. So if we look at the 4th chapter, you'll see, starting verse 32. It says, before verse 32, different types of duties, prescribed duties were explained according to the orders of spiritual life. Then verse 32 says, all these different types of sacrifice are approved by the Vedas, and all of them are born of different types of work. Knowing them as such, you will become liberated. O chastiser of the enemy, verse 33, the sacrifice performed in knowledge is better than the mere sacrifice of material possessions. After all, O son of Pritha, all sacrifices of work culminate in transcendental knowledge. Okay, then the next verse says, just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master. Inquire from him submissively and render service unto him. The self-realized souls can impart knowledge unto you because they have seen the truth. So this is the key of how to go from the lower Swadharma to the higher Swadharma. You have to have bona fide gurus, Shiksha and Diksha gurus. And then they can explain not only the letter of the law, but the spirit of the law. There's a difference between the letter of the law and the spirit of the law. One can follow the letter of the law and deviate. But if one follows the spirit of the law, they will follow it correctly. So that's why it's necessary to have bona fide spiritual master, to understand the actual spirit of, not only the letter of the law, but the spirit of the law also. Otherwise, one can deviate easily. Okay, so now we're going to verse 32, unless there's some questions.
So Varnashram Dharma is inferior to Vaidhi Varnashram Dharma, right? Like it's...
Well, Prabhupada said it's not possible to follow it in Kali Yuga. Very strict. You can make mistakes, and mistakes are costly. Let's put it like that. But the Daiva Varnashram, you can easily follow it in this age because it's full of Rajavidya, Rajaguyam, Pavitramidam, Uttamam, Pratyaksha Bhagavam Karmam, Susukam Kartam Aviyam. It's joyfully performed. It's full of sukha, right? So we have festivals. And everything we do is actually very fun. It's not fun for people who are contaminated. It's great fun for people who are becoming purified. Just like going out with our food truck. It was a lot of fun last week. We had a great time. We're going to do it again tomorrow. So, because you just see the happiness of the people. They get this nice plate of prasadam, and they can't believe it, we're doing this. And then they more prone to like hearing about the philosophy, and then you have to have some entertainment also. Last week, Amina danced. Every week we should have some entertainment. It could be a play, it could be dance, it could be a musical thing. So it should be a festival, a mini festival, with nice prasadam. So it's a lot of fun. People feel energized. The people that partake in the prasadam and the people who are serving the prasadam, they become energized because it's fun. It makes you feel good. Okay. So that's the last sentence is the most important. Discharging one's specific duty in any field of action in accordance with the orders of higher authorities serves to elevate one to a higher status of life. Now, this is, if we look in 6th chapter, 6th verse, it says, let's look at 7th verse. For one who has conquered the mind, 6th chapter, 7th verse. For one who has conquered the mind, the supersoul is already reached, for he has attained tranquility. To such a man, happiness and distress, heat and cold, honor and dishonor are all the same. Now in the purport, it's very important. It says, actually every living entity is intended to abide by the dictation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So what did it say here? Discharging one's specific duty in any field of action in accordance with the orders of higher authorities serves to elevate one to a higher status of life. And then in the 6th chapter, 7th verse, it says, every living entity is intended to abide by the dictation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is seated in everyone's heart as Paramatma. When the mind is misled by the external illusory energy, one becomes entangled in material activities. Therefore, as soon as one's mind is controlled through one of the yoga systems, one should be considered to have already reached the destination. One has to abide by superior dictation. Again, he's saying it, right? When one's mind is fixed on a superior nature, he has no alternative but to follow the dictation of the Supreme. He's saying it a third time. The mind must admit some superior dictation and follow it. Fourth time he's saying it. The effect of controlling the mind is that one automatically follows the dictation of Paramatma. Fifth time he said it. Or a supersoul. Because this transcendental position is at once achieved by one who is in Krishna consciousness, the devotee of the Lord is unaffected by the dualities of material existence, namely distress and happiness, cold and heat, etc. This state is practical samadhi or absorption in the Supreme. So dictation from a superior authority, the ultimate superior authority is Krishna, or those who represent Krishna correctly. If you look at the previous verse, it says that the constitutional position of the living entity is to receive instruction from a superior authority. Yes, the constitutional position of the living entity is carry out the order of the superior. Yes, there you are. When we don't do that, we get into trouble. The people that say no God, no master. That's their philosophy. No God, no master. So they're rejecting all authority. All they do is get into trouble. Okay. So let's read text 32. O Partha, happy are the Kshatriyas to whom such fighting opportunities come unsought, opening for them the doors of the heavenly planets. In other words, they shouldn't be out looking for a fight. They should wait till the fight comes to them. Right? In other words, there's no preemptive war. The first time the United States engaged in a preemptive war. Preemptive war is when they went to war with Iraq. Iraq was not the enemy of the United States. In fact, Iraq helped the United States by attacking Iran, starting a war with Iran. And the CIA, the United States government, was supporting Iraq. Right? And then the United States attacks Iraq. The United States gave permission to Iraq to attack Kuwait. And then they go to war against Iraq. And then later on, after they defeated Iraq, they attacked Iraq after 9/11. So that's an example of a preemptive war. Iraq never declared war with the United States, never did anything against the United States. They threw some missiles on Israel, but that's not the United States. And then the United States attacks them and now created havoc all over the Middle East. So we see Kshatriyas never engage in preemptive strikes. They wait. Happy are the Kshatriyas to whom such fighting opportunities come unsought, opening for them the doors of the heavenly planets. So, in other words, it's a bona fide war if you've been attacked. It's not a bona fide war if you preemptively attack an enemy or someone you consider an enemy. As the supreme teacher of the world, Lord Krishna condemns the attitude of Arjuna, who said, "I do not find any good in this fighting. It will cause perpetual habitation in hell." Such statements by Arjuna were due to ignorance only. He wanted to become non-violent in the discharge of his specific duty. For a Kshatriya to be on the battlefield and to become non-violent is the philosophy of fools. In the Parasara Smriti, or religious codes made by Parasara, the great sage and father of Vyasadeva, it is said, the Kshatriya's duty is to protect the citizens from all kinds of difficulties, and for that reason, he has to apply violence in suitable cases for law and order. Therefore, he has to conquer the soldiers of inimical kings, and thus, with religious principles, he should rule over the world. Considering all aspects, Arjuna had no reason to refrain from fighting. If he should conquer his enemies, he would enjoy the kingdom, and if he should die in a battle, he would be elevated to heavenly planets, whose doors were wide open to him. Fighting would be for his benefit in either case. So, this is the code of honor of a genuine Kshatriya. They should never be afraid to go to fight. They should never be afraid to die. They should be courageous at all times. Now, you can see not everyone's able to do this. When Arjuna went with the son of, what was it, Virat. Huh? Huh? When they were in incognito in the kingdom, was it Virat?
Virat's son.
Yeah, so Virat's son volunteers to go with Arjuna to fight the Kauravas, right?
Yeah.
And Arjuna's driving the chariot for Virat, right? But when Virat saw the Kauravas, he fainted out of fear. And then Arjuna fought them by himself and defeated their army. He defeated all of them by himself. And when Virat when he woke up and saw the fighting going on again, he was like bewildered by it. He was frightened. So you see, not everyone can go into battle. Here's Virat, he's the son of a Kshatriya, but he fainted out of fear. So, Kshatriyas never shy away from a fight. And they're not afraid to die. So this is if you look at the Khalsa, when Guru Govind Singh formed the Khalsa, the Khalsa were supposed to be saintly warriors. So they don't cut their hair, they look like sadhus, right? But yet, they're not afraid to die. And because of that, they're not allowed to get married either. They have to be celibate. They're supposed to be living like sannyasis, but trained to kill like Kshatriyas. Is that right?
Yeah.
If you're married, then you're going to hesitate to die. So they're young men, and they're trained not to be afraid to die.
They were baptized.
Huh?
They were baptized.
Baptized.
Yeah.
They don't marry also?
So yeah. At that time, Guru Govind's time.
Okay.
Yeah, because if they're married, they might hesitate to be killed. But if they're not married, they're just young kids, and they're trained to fight, and they're basically they're convinced that they will go to what do you call it? Sach, the heaven.
Satriyakal.
What's it called?
What is it?
their work.
They're Vaikunthas. It's Sach or something.
Sache Darbar ki jai, something. Is that what it is?
What do they call
Satriyakal.
Huh?
What do they call it?
Where they gonna go if they die in the battlefield?
Chardi Akal. Chardi. Chardi
Akal,
Akal means
Akal.
heavenly.
Akal.
Okay.
Chardi Akal.
Chadiakal. Okay. Yeah. So you can see not everyone's capable of doing that. It's only special class of people are able to be trained like that and get into that mindset. Considering all aspects, Arjuna had no reason to refrain from fighting. If he should conquer his enemies, he would enjoy the kingdom, and if he should die in the battlefield, he would be elevated to the heavenly planets, whose doors were wide open to him. Fighting would be for his benefit in either case. So Arjuna saw that fighting would not be in his benefit in either case, whether he won or lost. Here Krishna is convincing him of the opposite, that fighting would be to his benefit whether he wins or loses. Okay.
But this is still on material platform, what Prabhupada just said, right? He's talking of still material, not for Krishna. Because he says heavenly planets.
Well, first of all, Krishna is defeating Arjuna's material, let's say, justifications for not fighting with superior logic. Okay. But at a certain point, he's going to then begin to instruct them spiritually, especially when we get to verse 45, where he says, second chapter, verse 45, Trigunya Vishaya Veda, Nishtra Gunya Bhavarjana, Nirdvandva Nityasattvasto, Niryogashyama Atmama. He says, the Vedas deal mainly with the subject of the three modes of material nature, O Arjuna. Become transcendental to these three modes. Be free from all dualities and from all anxieties for gain and safety, and be established in the self. So that from that point on, he starts teaching spiritually. First of all, he defeats him materially, to show him that even his material arguments are not, although they sound good, but they're not valid. And then he's going to teach him spiritually, to raise him to a higher platform of spiritual understanding. So he's on the higher Swadharma. Okay, so I think we'll stop there. Are there any questions, discussion? Yes?
Prabhu, in case of the example you gave in Srirangam and also in the battles for the Kshatriya, they go to heavenly planets,
Yes.
but not to Vaikuntha, even like protecting Brahmins and all.
Well, it depends. If they have a bona fide guru, they can go back to God. If they don't, if they have a guru who has mixed motives, then their understanding is not complete. Therefore, they'll be elevated to higher planets. You notice we read the 4th chapter, right? Where at verse 33, it's saying, there are different types of sacrifices you have to follow. And in verse 34, it says you must accept a bona fide guru. From that point on, things change. Without bona fide guru, one can follow religious principles and be elevated to higher material planets. But you're still a prisoner.
So from higher planets again you fall down.
You can come down, yeah. That's explained in the 9th chapter, verse number. 1 second, I'll find it. Yeah, starting in verse 21, 9th chapter, verse 21. Verse 20 and 21. You can read that. Out loud. Verse 20. 9:20.
Just the translation, Prabhu, or the verse?
Just read the verse. No, just read the English.
Those who study the Vedas and drink the Soma juice, seeking the heavenly planets, worship me indirectly. Purified of sinful reactions, they take birth on the pious heavenly planet of Indra, where they enjoy godly delights.
Okay, now next verse.
When they have thus enjoyed vast heavenly sense pleasure and the results of their pious activities are exhausted, they return to the mortal planet again. Thus, those who seek sense enjoyment by adhering to the principles of the three Vedas achieve only repeated birth and death.
See? So, they go up and down.
So, in that case, the karma will follow them, but so the question I have is, when they did that act of bravery, they are still hurting someone, bad or good. So are there any reactions from that? When they come back, they have to go through their karma cycle again?
Well, if they have a genuine enemy who's evil, and they kill that enemy, just like, did Rama get any bad karma for killing Ravana? No, he got good karma for doing it. So, but if you kill an innocent person, then you get bad karma.
Even
and see, the code of Kshatriya is very strict. You can't fight at night. You can only fight in the day, in the daylight. You can only fight an equal combatant. You can't fight inferior combatants. That would not be fair, right? And you can only fight face to face. You can't shoot someone in the back or kill someone. So it's a very strict code of honor, code of engagement for Kshatriyas. So if you follow all those things and you kill a person who's equal to you in battle, it's glorious. But just like they have the same thing. Like if you've ever watched boxing, they have to be more, the same weight, the same level, and the same type of training and everything. And then there's rules, like one time this guy, Mike Tyson, he was fighting with someone, he bit off his ear. Sometimes they're holding each other like this. He was so angry, he bit the guy's ear off, so they disqualified him for that. So, you can't, there are rules of fighting.
and both parties are willing to. It's not like they are forced to fight.
Yeah. So, but a real Kshatriya never shies away from a fight. If a Kshatriya is challenged to gamble or to fight, he must do it. So therefore Yudhishthira was challenged to gamble, so he had to go. He had to do it. Even though he knew he was going to be cheated. He said, first time they cheated him, he was invited a second time. He knew they were going to cheat him, but he still went back. Right? For two reasons. He didn't want to disrespect his uncle. And he was, he's bound by the code of Kshatriya valor. That if he's challenged to gamble, he has to gamble.
I just wish he would have asked Krishna to gamble on his behalf. That would have been so much easier, right?
No, but Krishna wasn't asked. Yudhishthira was asked.
I know, that's what I wish Yudhishthira would have asked Krishna, right?
No,
How Duryodhana asked
why would
Shakuni.
he do that? Then you wouldn't have
I know,
Mahabharata.
I know.
Against his plan.
Prabhuji, I have a question. This is Jiva Atma and Parama Atma.
Yeah.
So Atma and Atma, they're two, what is that qualification of Atma and Atma similar? And while they are Jiva,
Well, they're both eternal.
it's Sat Chit Ananda. Sat Chit Ananda.
Yeah. Vigraha. Never forget the word Vigraha. The Mayavadis always say Sat Chit Ananda. They never say Vigraha. Vigraha means the form of eternity, bliss, and knowledge. If you just say Satchitananda, there's no form involved.
Eternal, blissful
And knowledgeable.
Knowledge.
Full of knowledge.
eternal, blissful and
Full of knowledge, yes.
of that, jiva, like how are we different? Quantity, qualitative things are there. The jiva.
Well, Krishna knows everything. If we know Krishna, we know everything.
So our ananda is like fluctuating, but sat and chit it stays always.
No, but I think the soul's ananda, if you're in a truly liberated state, it's like Krishna's, but you're still subservient because you're the jiva.
Krishna is unlimited, right? And Jiva is limited. So it's like this. If you are invited to sit on a throne with a king, you're not the king, but you're sitting on the same level as the king. So if they serve food to the king, they also serve you food. The same food.
But you always know that you are not the king.
Yeah, you're not the king. But if you're on the same level as the king, then you enjoy the same pleasures as the king.
So here for Jiva Atma and Paramatma is Satchitananda Vigraha. For us, we are just Satchitananda.
No, we are Satchitananda Vigraha. But our Vigraha is very small, and Krishna's Vigraha is very big.
It's like the part and parcel of the Lord, right? But
Yes. Well, but we have the same qualities, of the Lord,
Qualities,
but not in the same quantity.
Yeah. It's not.
So you're eternal. So is Krishna. You're
That knowledgeable, are we are not always knowledgeable, right? But he is always knowledgeable.
no, because of our small size, we can fall into Maya. But if we're always connected to Krishna, and we know Krishna, then we know everything. Because
But
Krishna
we are
is
limited.
everything.
Still
What?
we are limited with our knowledge.
I know, we're limited. Just like if you have a son, right? So if your son listens to you and repeats what you say, he has knowledge. If he separates himself from you, he loses the benefit of constantly having knowledge. So as long as we're connected to Krishna, we know everything, because Krishna is everything. As soon as we separate from Krishna, then we lose that source of knowledge. So like for example, you can walk maybe 10 miles an hour. But if you walk onto an airplane, and the airplane takes off, you're going 500 miles an hour. Because you're associated with the airplane. If you keep walking without the airplane, you can't go that fast. But by walking onto the airplane, now you can go 500 miles an hour. So when you're connected to Krishna, although you're limited, but through connection to Krishna, you experience unlimited things.
Unlimited ananda or knowledge or both.
Yes, both. But still, Krishna has more. Even though you're experiencing,
It always be the subordinate soul.
just like your son, as long as he's close to you, and everything you know, he's benefiting from it. If he separates himself from you, then he gets very limited.
So we are in this material world, we are seeking the ananda in a wrong place.
Yes. We're seeking pleasure in a place where there's no happiness. It's like somebody goes to a casino to be happy. But there's no real happiness there. The little bit of happiness they have just tricks them. But they actually suffer. Part can never be equal to the whole. But it can be have similar qualities. Like the gold in the gold ring is never equal to the gold in the gold mine. But it has the same qualities. It's still gold. Wow, it's a big feast, bro. What happened?
Lakshmi Mataji is merciful.
So this is ragi?
No, it's soup. The fruits as well, like but
What?
fruit as well. But you should try this first. I will give you fruit.
Well, I'm going to
Chutney.
take one more spoon. You want
Papa, come here.
So you're living in India? You content is what?
My 5 years.